had a lunch. And it confirmed my wife's belief that in Singapore there's no such thing as a free lunch. When I came back from Washington in 1990, I was invited to lunch by then DPM and concurrently Minister for Defense, Mr. Goh Chok Tong, at MINDEF. Very lousy food, you know. So at the end of the lunch, he said, I know that you've got a job at MFA, but could you take on the second job and be the director IPS? And he explained to me what his hopes and aspirations were, you know. So I said, okay, since I'm from the university, always interested in the world of ideas, and I like to be a bridge builder, so I said, okay, I'll try that. So that's how it all started in 1990.
What was the mandate given to you then?
We mentioned several objectives. First, he said, in 1990, Singapore was still lacking in platforms which could bring together people of different views who can talk to one another in confidence, you know. So one of the first things he wanted me to do is to create at IPS a platform which we call the closed door roundtable or meeting, right? And he said I should try to create an atmosphere in which people feel confident to come, discuss things in confidence. They can disagree with each other, but they will do it without any fear, you know. So he told me that that's one objective. The second objective was something that had started before me during Heng Chi and John's time, which was to do a series of seminars for the CEOs to just help them understand Singapore. Yeah? And we did that for many years until we felt the mission was accomplished, and then we stopped it. And I felt in the case of Singapore, at the time we didn't have a single think tank, you know, that we need a think tank to play this bridging role between the world of scholars and the world of action. That you need a think tank to digest the world of knowledge, analyze it, induce from it learnings which are relevant to the world of action, you know, and be a bridge between I guess government and the private sector on one hand and the world of scholars on the other. When I began my journey in IPS in 1990, IPS had no public visibility, you know. So I felt that I need to project IPS to the Singapore public. I wanted to do something that was of interest not only to the world of scholars, but to different stakeholders in Singapore. So my vision was that it will be like a mini town hall meeting of Singapore, that each year I will convene a conference to review the important events and trends that took place in Singapore the year before. So I call it year in review. Well, as I say, in 1990, people were still not confident about speaking their mind, sharing their thoughts, fearful that they may suffer some penalty, you know. So in the beginning, the whole conference was closed off. The media couldn't report anything at the conference. Gradually, I sensed that we had made progress. So I persuaded the speaker to agree that it will be partly open and partly closed off, that the papers written for the conference would be in the public domain, that the media can report on them. But the discussion, the Q&As would be closed off, so that they could feel more confident expressing their views, you see. So it was a three-stage journey, you know. Stage 1, closed door. Stage 2, partially closed door, partially open. And then finally, I felt we were ready to have the whole thing open. So in 1993, the American President Bill Clinton decided to elevate the status of Apec from a ministerial level meeting to a leaders meeting. So he convened the first Apec leaders meeting in in Seattle, actually, in Washington State, but he had it on an island called Blake Island. Yeah. So the decision taken in Blake Island was that they will convene a business advisory council. A few months later, and out of the blues, President Clinton sent an emissary, a lady from the U.S. Trade Representative Office, USTR. Her name was Sandra Christoph, whom I knew, and we all call her Sandy. So Sandy Christoph came to see me and said, President Clinton has a request for you. Then she told me the background, and she said that the United States felt it was better for a small country like Singapore to be the convener than a big country like America. So because we are small, we are neutral, we are acceptable to everybody, they decided that Singapore should convene the council and asked whether I could be the convener and could IPS serve as the secretariat, you see. So for 2 busy years, Apec, we served as the secretariat for Apec. That's the story.
Yeah. And we serve free of charge.
Free of charge. It's got nothing to do with being kind, being compassionate. It's protecting the reputation of the institution and protecting your integrity. It comes back to trust, Because if I cave in whenever I'm under pressure, people wouldn't trust me anymore, They wouldn't come to IPS or this closed door meeting. They'll say, you're just a stooge, What's the point by coming to institute? It's a matter of building trust. It's a matter of protecting the institution's integrity. There was a government committee looking into the reform of the economy, but Arun, Kigab and I felt that why don't we try to make a presentation of private economists, especially from the private sector, that may help the government, in thinking about the way forward. So we launched this initiative. We didn't ask the government permission before we did it. We just did it, And we were so surprised that our friends in the private sector were so enthusiastic, that we worked usually in the evening and night. And when we completed our work, we wrote a good report. I then decided to submit the report to DPM Lee, We were not sure how he would receive it, whether he would say, why did you waste your time? Nobody asked you to do this, But he received it very well and even invited us to make a presentation to his committee, And then more than that, told us to publish our report. So that was a pleasant surprise. When we were going to host the annual IMF World Bank meeting in 2006, the Ministry of Finance contacted me to say that the tradition is that alongside the official meeting, there would be a so-called program of seminars, which brings together basically thought leaders, to talk about the world economy, monetary policy, to discuss issues relevant to both the bank and the fund. And the Ministry of Finance asked, can IPS take on the responsibility of co-organizing the program of seminars with IMF and the World Bank? So as a preliminary step to 2006, IPS organized a conference of Asian think tanks, It was, in a way, talent spotting. We wanted to know who are the best thinkers in the various think tanks in Asia, whom we could invite to speak next year in a program of seminar. And it was very useful. The conference was very useful because we met so many wonderful people, And we exceeded the target of 50%. The World Bank IMF was so impressed that we managed to get so many outstanding Asians taking part in the program of seminar which they have never done before. I think we do very little work now in the external wing. Yeah, it's primarily domestic. Yeah, which is back to the original man, which is good, because that's what IPS was born for. All this external stuff came because of me. I think it's not me, but over the years, the IPS culture, work culture, is a very positive one, and the result is that we have very engaged employees. Whereas I think in IPS the culture is a very positive one. People work long hours. On the eve of a major conference, some of my colleagues would spend the night in a hotel, work through the night. No complaint. Why? Because they feel very committed. And even our alumni, they come back.